You should see that up in Zoom at the top there that it's streaming.
Yeah, look at that.
And start this recording on the computer. And then I got to start audio hijack. Backup.
So you can stream right to YouTube from Zoom.
Yep, we're doing it right now. We are live on YouTube.
Excellent.
All right, and we're nice. It does. It works really well. We're gonna do. I use this other service called Restream that does both, but gotta pay for it.
All right, use OBS and it's
OBS is good too.
Yeah, it's good, but it's complicated.
Very.
It's kind of a nightmare sometimes.
All right. So you guys ready? We can start a little early here.
Yeah,
and
I'm ready.
We'll do the intro and we'll do this. We'll rock and roll here. All right, we're gonna start in 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome to episode 130 of In Touch with iOS, a podcast that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies. I am your host, Dave Ginsburg, and my co-host, Warren Sklar, is off for the holiday this week. But I have a great new guest here, Mr. Holden DePardo, a podcaster extraordinaire. How you doing, Holden?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I was so thrilled that you agreed to come on. And then, of course, we had to bring your pops here, Brian DePardo. He's here as well. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Dave.
Well, great to have you. You were on before. I think the last time we did this was we were together at the Jamf conference, if I remember correctly. Yeah. That was it was probably getting close to 2 years ago now.
2 years ago, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, at least so. And so you got the itch, and I got you a mic, and you sound really good, and we're ready to rock and roll here. So
we're all ready. We're AirPods in, like we're all ready.
We all our AirPods going. Yeah, we do. So we got some news of the week. I got a couple stories here, and then I thought the good topic would be for this week is since we're close to New Year's here is the year in review of Apple. There was quite a bit that happened, I tell you, and I would like to get your guys' your opinions of what you really thought that were top things, and we'll talk about all kinds of stuff, some tips and apps. We got some picks as well. So let's just go ahead and dive right in here and go to the first story here. First story here is this is on Mac Rumors. Apple loses copyright claims in lawsuit against Corellium. Corellium is a mobile device company that supports iOS that this week they won a significant victory in its legal battle against Apple. Apple last year sued Corellium for copyright infringement because Corellium's software was designed to replicate iOS to allow security researchers to locate bugs and flaws. The Florida judge threw this out, and Apple claims that Corellium had violated the copyright. Well, they didn't win. So, but I'm kind of glad that there are some folks out there to keep Apple legit, stay on their security, and do their thing. So, what did you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I actually hadn't heard about this until very recently. It is strange, just the idea that a company can take the entire code base for an operating system and use it literally verbatim. And it's considered fair use. That's a weird kind of concept for me to wrap my head around, honestly. But it makes sense. Like, you don't want just Apple to be in charge of the security for their devices. You kind of want some sort of independent third party to, like you kind of said, keep them in check. So I think it makes sense. But it definitely is that kind of an odd gray area where if you copy anything verbatim, generally that's not fair use. But in this case, it kind of makes sense.
It made total sense, and I think, and Apple was, if I remember correctly, they were sending out devices to some hackers to on their own to trying to do this. So I think that's probably kind of where it stemmed from. They want as we all know, Apple likes to control things a little. Yeah. So, do you have any thoughts on this, Brian?
No, I think you guys covered my thoughts on it. I hadn't even heard of this until recently as well. So yeah, that was interesting. I'm sure that Apple has like an arsenal of hackers on the payroll that hammer their stuff. But I do think I agree with Holden. I do think that there needs to be a third party to kind of keep them in check. I think that should be the case with any company, really.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. It's the same kind of logic of like you have like making a video game, for example, you have QA testers who test your game and make sure there's bugs and stuff because they'll think of something that maybe the people who made it didn't think of.
Yeah.
So you always need that second opinion. When security is Apple's kind of bread and butter right now.
And there's also a ton of responsibility with it because there's never been a computer like the iPhone or phones in general, because it really is the true first personal computer, because it contains everything. And so it has to be secure and it has to be solid. And, a lot of people choose iPhones because they're secure. Mm-hmm. So
for sure. Absolutely. All right. Then we'll move on to the next story. This was also in Mac Rumors. 9 of the top 10 U.S. smartphone activations on Christmas Day 2020 were iPhones. A new report states that 9 of those top 10 of the phones were activated on Christmas Day were iPhones. Christmas Day, of course, represents the single greatest day for new smartphone activations, since everybody gets their Christmas gifts. Interestingly enough, the number one phone was the iPhone 11, and then you had the iPhone 10R, and then it worked all its way up there. So, Brian, what do you think of this?
I'm actually surprised. It always surprises me when, it shouldn't really, but I've never bought a phone for someone for Christmas.
Yeah, me either.
So it's it's one of those things where it's like, say I wanted to buy my wife a new iPhone. It's like, you have to go through either a trade-in or you have to go through an activation process or whatever. So it never really made sense to me that they would be, legit gifts on Christmas. But I'm surprised the iPhone 11 was the best selling.
Yeah, and then 10R and then the 12 Pro Max was the third one.
Wow.
So the Mini also isn't there at all. The Mini's not in the.
No, I don't see the Mini mentioned. You got the iPhone SE, which I'm not surprised about the SE. The second gen SE, of course, and then the iPhone 12. And interesting enough, you also see the iPhone 8 Plus still on there, and the 8. So there's still people activating those as well. Mm-hmm. So it was 9 of the 10
iPhone 8s.
They're still. I think there's still third party market out there for them. They're still selling them.
Interesting. So, yeah, I'm surprised the Mini wasn't on there.
Here's something to consider too. Like, these are just smartphone activations. Technically, doesn't that mean that it could just be a hand-me-down phone? Like,
could be.
Give a phone to someone and they just activate it. It's like maybe these weren't even phones that were bought like this holiday season. They were just handed down. So that's kind of where an iPhone 8 could make sense. Even an iPhone 11. Like, you buy an iPhone 12 this year. What do you do with the 11? We'll wrap it up and give it to the kid. Why not?
Yeah. Absolutely. So interesting, and no surprise in our world. Next story. This was in Apple Insider. Actually, it's the HomePod Mini works with the 18-watt power adapter after the 14.3 software update. Thanks to the HomePod version 14.3 update, Apple's new HomePod Mini now supports the 18-watt power adapters or battery packs. So, wow, you actually could probably make this into you could be traveling with your HomePod and use a battery pack if you so wanted to.
I hadn't thought of that.
So yeah, I remember when I remember when I got the HomePod Mini and I immediately tried to plug it in with the different adapter and it said and it had the yellow ring, the orange ring, amber ring. It wouldn't do it. So now if a lot of us have the 18-watt power supply probably from our iPads and probably that. Holden, did you get a HomePod Mini? Do you have one?
I have 2. Well, one's mine, one I got from my mom, but I have one. It's fantastic. I can't wait to see someone or a video going viral of someone using an HomePod Mini in an airport or like in the airplane with a power supply
or on a plane
or with a battery pack. One of those battery packs. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I like the power supply idea in terms of battery pack because I kind of want to put one in the bathroom, but there's no convenient outlet to plug it into. But then again, you have to like charge the battery pack every once in a while to keep.
Right.
And I would never remember to do that. I would just go in the bathroom and be like, "Hey Siri, start." Battery's dead, and like, oh, that's pointless now. So it's nice, but I don't know.
Interesting.
It would work for me.
I have the battery pack that actually I got as a free kit for my Rodecaster Pro that I have here for my podcasting gear here, and that is at least a 21,000 milliamp battery, so it'll last a long time. So I think I'm going to try it out to see if it how long it'll last and see how it would do it. How it would do it. It should be interesting to see. So
yeah, I have a battery pack for my suitcase. And I'm going to try it. I'm going to see how it works.
Yeah. There you go. Cool. Not like I'm traveling anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. I never leave the house, so I have no need for a battery pack for my HomePod. So.
And then the last story here, this is also on Apple Insider. This actually hit just a few hours ago as we're recording this. Gazelle is ending its used device trade-in program. Gazelle is ending its entire device to trade-in and buyback program with the closure effective February 1st of 2021. I've been using Gazelle forever. I mean, I had stopped for a while because their pricing was starting to get a little kind of not so good. Yeah. And but they are going to continue to be in business. They're going to solely focus on certified pre-owned device sales that they already have obtained. But I guess they're going to be using, I thought I'd read there's some sort of ATM machines or something that you can actually walk to a kiosk and actually trade in your device that way. Not sure where that's going to go. What did you guys think? What did you think, Holden?
I guess they're going to take in phones still, just not give you money for it. So why would you give your phone to Gazelle when you can give your phone to Apple? It's
Eco ATM. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one of those in the Providence Place Mall.
Yep.
And they work, but I don't see someone trading in their phone just to recycle it and not get money back when that's a pretty prominent business model that companies offer nowadays. I get it from Gazelle's end though, because now they get more money when they sell a phone because they're not having to give out money to get the phone in the first place. But I don't see that working.
They may go into the pennies on the dollar market and find devices because Apple's actually being very fair with their trade-ins. Honestly, I mean, I've traded in some stuff and got some really reasonable price. I remember trading in my Apple Watch. I think it was my Series. My Series 4. My Series 4. I just traded in to go to the 6. They still gave me about $200 for it. So
yeah, it's not bad.
Or something like that, maybe a little less. But yeah, that's I think that's one of the biggest things. There's a lot better options for trading that Gazelle wasn't getting. So
yeah, Apple actually, I think. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Dad.
I was just going to say I didn't realize that Apple used a third party when you trade something in. I just traded in a MacBook, a 2015 MacBook. They gave me $300 for it. And they use an outside service. So
they do. Yep.
Yeah. It's not Gazelle, but
no,
I think
but they do use third party.
Phobos or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. That's what it was called. Yeah, it's a third party service. I had thought they brought it in house. Apparently not. They outsource it. So
maybe they just outsource it for the actual delivery and inspection of the device, and then it goes to Apple for either recycling or parts or whatever.
Yep, exactly. So, all right. Well, that's the news for this week, and it's almost a brand new year. We're wrapping things up here in 2020. I thought it'd be a good discussion here to do kind of a 2020 year in review for Apple, iOS, iPad, OS, and hardware and everything else. With the world so upside down this year with the pandemic, I mean, who would have thought that Apple was going to have a banner year like they did? I mean, they did amazing things with WWDC was virtual for the very first time. And boy, they got some amazing feedback on how great that was. It really turned out really cool. Plus three virtual events that we all got excited about and got to see all the new products and nice streamlined events. I'd like to find out what you guys, what are the top things, what kind of stood out for you that Apple did? Holden, I'll start with you. What do you think some of the things that you think that really Apple did a great job with as far as products that are really on the cutting edge here?
I think that there's so many things that are announced this year, so it's hard to pick just one. But I think that the M1 chips is probably the most significant step that Apple made all year. And it's actually funny because initially when I first saw the event, I was kind of underwhelmed. I'm like, oh, they look the same. They just have like a faster chip in it. But it wasn't until people started to get their hands on it, and it really started to kind of hit what this chip actually means in the greater landscape of processors that are out there. And it's remarkable. It's absolutely mind-blowing, and it makes me really excited for 2021, which we'll talk about later, of course. But what we're going to see with that, the continuation of the M line, it's really impressive.
Yeah, Santa was very good to me this year. I got a surprising gift and ended up getting a M1 Mac Mini, so it's sitting here on my desk. I'm very excited. Just started playing with it, so. I already started trying to install some of the iOS apps on the M1, and then some look good. So I mean, we talked about this on previous shows, but some look real cool to use. Others probably aren't going to be as great of an experience. Like I have LumaFusion on here, and that really is requiring a lot of touch, and which you really don't have. yeah, I was very excited about that. And so that really was the biggest thing that stood out for you was just the M1 release.
Yeah, even though I didn't get one, I got a HomePod Mini. The price this year, I got a HomePod Mini. But that I think is
budget's
history
here.
of Apple. Yeah, exactly. I also want to get a MacBook Pro, so that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, it's the most significant step Apple's made in a long time, and we'll look back and it's like when Apple started making the iPhone and it changed the company. I think this is going to have similar impacts. I think they're going to be able to do things with Macs they just couldn't do before because of this chipset, and it's going to be really cool to see in the next few years.
Absolutely, Brian. I'm assuming you agree with M1, or did anything else stand up for you?
The M1 is the big one, and I can't stop talking about it. Ask Holden.
Me too.
I got the MacBook Air, and it's painful going back to an Intel Mac after you've used this as your primary computer because it's so responsive. And it's just one of those things where, with an iOS device, everything is pretty much instantaneous. It's so responsive. But that was never the case with the Mac. And now it is. Now you just click on something and something happens immediately. When Microsoft Word opens in not even one bounce, I mean, that's pretty huge. Whereas, before
it's not updated yet, right?
I have an Apple Silicon version installed on my MacBook.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And just going from one to the other is incredibly significant. So
for sure. Yeah, we were just talking pre-show, looking at all the universal apps that are already been released, and Office and all that, and it's cool because you look at it, when you go on a Mac, and I know we don't talk too much about Mac here, but really the relation of iOS with this is just phenomenal. Being able to look at the apps, and it actually tells you, okay, like LumaFusion, that's an iOS app, so it tells you which type of app you have, or if you have the apps here, like I have VLC, that's still an Intel app. They haven't updated it yet, so you're going to have some apps that are still Intel and some that are universal, and then some are iOS. So I think that's where it's going to be interesting to see where that goes, and we could talk about that just a bit for next year's future. Let's hold that thought. But yeah, I'm agreeing with you guys. I think I'm going to I talked about this yesterday on Mac Voices Live, and with Chuck Joyner, I said that the Mac Mini M1 was really a standout thing for me. Now that I just got it, because I've been drooling over it for the last 2 months, but finally got it, and so I'm pretty psyched to have it. But really, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, I'm very, very thrilled and impressed with the fact of what this phone has accomplished over the years with the LiDAR on the camera and the 3 lenses and then having that super telephoto on it, which is amazing. The performance is just phenomenal. And we're going to talk about the Mini with you, Brian, just a bit here. So, but those are my 2 top picks. I was hard for me to really distinguish the 2. So, but let's kind of dig in through just how the year progressed. We won't spend too much time on it. But I almost forgot as I was doing my research and looking back to all the stuff that happened this past year. I forgot in January that the iPad turned 10 years old this year. This past year. So
totally forgot that too.
10 years. Yeah. I remember I bought the very first iPad. I had the first gen. I remember you and I, Brian, get all excited about it when I had it. And we
were up early that morning, remember?
Yeah, we were.
To pre-order. I went a little crazy and
boy.
ordered the iPad, the case, the keyboard. I mean, everything. I went overboard.
Yep.
But
I remember standing in one of the front bedrooms just to look through the window and wait for your iPad. And I was still excited about it because even though it was your iPad, it was a big day.
We were obsessing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it hasn't gone, continued on ever since here. Since it turned 10, of course, they had to come up with new iPad Pros. So they did release a 2020 version of the iPad Pro, which was all it really was. The difference was a smidge jump in the processor, and then they added the LiDAR and the three lens camera, which to me, I didn't find any justification to upgrade. I have the 2018 iPad Pro, and I'm perfectly happy with that. But I did get the iPad Magic Keyboard, and I thought that was pretty exciting, and that was in March of this year, of 2020, that's a pretty cool keyboard. A little pricey.
Yeah,
I do. I don't use a little pricey, but I've been using it off and on. Obviously I have two computers going here. You got the iPad, you got your iPhone, so it's hard to really put your focus on it all the time. But when I do use it, I find it to be a very clean, easy to type on keyboard. And then the touchpad is a game changer. Having the touchpad on an iPad is pretty cool.
Yeah, I had trouble typing on it. I used one, I think it was at Best Buy, and just the way I type, and I've always had problems with iPad keyboards, is that my fingers, especially my middle fingers, hit the screen constantly while I'm typing. And the Magic Keyboard, I kept hitting it on the underside of the overhang. So when I would type, I kept whacking it. And I just was like, I don't think I could use it. But it's great to type on. The trackpad's great too. So,
So that was in March. Then April, we had the iPhone SE, the second gen was released. That was pretty much a big game changer. Apple ever coming out with a low end iPhone. That was a phone that really, and it's still selling very well to this day. Your base price around $399 is really good. Did you want to make a comment on that, Holden?
The only thing I have to say the iPhone SE is I really wish I had Face ID, because I think every iPhone should have Face ID now. I know Dad disagrees with that, but that's like the only thing. It's a great value, but I just keep thinking, so many people are going to have a Touch ID device and they should have a Face ID device. But that's nitpicky and small.
Yeah, well, the Touch ID also, you kind of lean towards the other thing they did release later on was the iPad Air, which came a little later in the year. I'll get to that in a second here. But I kind of agree with you. I like Face ID, but there's still a lot of people who love Touch ID still. So it's kind of both ways. So it's kind of cool that Apple's is allowing it to have having both on each of the different devices. So June, as I mentioned, WWDC was held first time ever virtually. The keynote was amazing. I think it was very concise, and that was really the precursor of all the remaining three events that happened. That the event was concise. It got done because all of us always set up watch the events every year live when they did it live at the Steve Jobs Theater, and they just kept going on and on. It'd be an hour and a half, sometimes hour 45 minutes, and you could tell presenters were not as concise with it, and then it would bring third party folks to come in to talk as well, and some of the events they did that, but very well done. And I think, I think something like, I can't remember the exact number. It was like 50 million developers that got to be able to attend, just because a lot of people couldn't attend because I don't think they only allowed like 50,000 tickets when you would go to San Jose. So that was a cool thing. And of course, iOS 14 was announced. So the next gen of us getting excited on that. So any thoughts on the WWDC?
Just starting off with the virtual event itself, I also do a video game podcast, so I've watched a lot of video game events this year, and let me tell you, they were horrible in terms of production values. Like, just really, I mean, major companies should be doing something larger than like a Skype call that they're taking a video of and then putting up there. Like, if you're showing off new products, you need to have more production value than that. And Apple just outclassed everything I saw in that regard. It was really, really impressive how well it flowed, the camera angles, all that. Like, they must have spent a lot of time working on that. It was really impressive. But iOS 14 itself is the first iOS update in a long time that changed the way I used my iPhone, just because of the app library and widgets.
App library, widgets.
It completely changed the way I use my phone. So you don't see that kind of advancement usually. It's usually something incremental, like, oh, now the share sheet's better. Wonderful. It's small things like that usually that kind of impact you the most. But this overall experience thing has changed a lot. It's so much easier just to find apps. Oh my God, it's so much better. I could never go back. It's going to, like, iOS 13 is going to feel archaic now. Matter of fact, my iPad feels archaic in some ways now, just because it doesn't have the widget, doesn't have the app library. And I really want those to come to iPad. I get why they're not there, but it needs to come eventually.
So and then September comes along. We had the first virtual event, and that was the new Apple Watch Series 6, and they came out the Apple Watch SE, the iPad Air with the Touch ID, which was the cool thing of that event, because the Touch ID is on a power button, which is really cool. I thought that they added to that with the power button. And then, of course, they announced the Apple One bundles, which got some excitement. And finally, they bundled together all of their services, and you can you are able to buy them across the board or whichever ones you want. I've got the Premier bundle, which is the includes all the services, which is the iCloud and then the Arcade. I'm going to ask you about Arcade here in just a minute, Harold. And News Plus, and then of course you have a Fitness Plus, which we'll talk about in a bit here. And then October, the second event, it's like, wow, this is great. We got another event, and the same thing happened again. And that was because the iPhones were delayed. And interesting. Somebody asked a question on the show, our Mac Voices show yesterday. If there hadn't been a pandemic and they would have had a live event like as normal, do you think Apple would have released as many products as they did this year? And I said, absolutely, because they obviously had everything in the pipeline, so there was no rhyme or reason why that there wouldn't be the products that were this. But of course, the iPhone 12 got delayed because of supply chain issues, so they couldn't get them out and released until October. Well, actually November, guys, because the iPhone 12 Pro Max didn't come out until the month later. So, but that was announced on that event as well as the HomePod Mini was announced, and iOS 14 got released to everybody because they had to have it ready to go for the iPhone 12. And then in November there was a third event, and then we got all excited about the first Apple Silicon M1 Max that were released. That was a great announcement. Got all kinds of details about the processor, and I think Apple's hit a home run with this processor, man. And we're going to see it. I bet we could see this improving even the iPads in the future as well. So it's definitely going to be interesting. Any comments on that?
So there's a lot there with all those events. There was just a lot in 3 months for Apple to release, anyway.
Sure was.
I do want to talk about Apple One really quickly, just because I feel like that's actually a pretty significant thing that happened this year that might not seem significant right now, but I think, again, like the M1 chips, looking back, we'll realize Apple One was a really big deal. Just with all the services included, what I'm excited about is it's the Premier bundle is everything Apple does, and they're not going to stop making services from here. There's probably going to be more services going to come out next year, and I'm curious to see like how that value proposition gets even better, because right now the $30 a month, if you use those services, is a fantastic deal, and that's going to continue to get better, I think. So I think that's a really big deal. The power button on the iPad Air, if that's not a sign that we're going to get that on the iPhone at some point and have dual biometrics, I think that's seems very likely. So I think that would be
a good thing, especially with the pandemic, because I tell you, I long for Touch ID on my phone because it is such a pain in the neck to type in my passcode if you're like shopping, and my shopping list is in my phone. And so I'm constantly having to type in, my passcode, where it'd just be so much easier. My wife has an iPhone 8 Plus, and, it's much easier. Apple Pay is much easier.
Yeah.
Getting into your phone is much easier. So I'd be okay with that, to have dual biometrics on the phone itself.
Yeah. I started using my Apple Watch more because of that exact thing. Going to a grocery store and need to look at my list, I'll just keep my list in the reminders app on my watch, so I can do it that way, because it's just so frustrating when you go to look at your phone and you have to wait an additional few seconds for the password prompt to come up because it doesn't recognize it. It's cumbersome. So I agree. It'd be good for that reason alone.
They did improve it, though. They did improve. They did make tweaks to it to help, and it does help, but you still have to type in your passcode, and it feels like 2009 all over again. So
I was just at Trader Joe's last night, and the cashier there was like, I can't even tell you how many people still just take their mask off completely to use Face ID.
Oh my God.
Because they don't want to use their passcode.
Super spreaders. God.
Yeah. Tell you. And then finally, December this month, they announced that dreaded $550 AirPods Max headphones. My gosh, very very interesting pair of headphones, but overly overpriced, I must say. They and the case looks like a bra. So
yeah, it does.
Yeah. And we did some discussion about this on other shows. Someone did an actual comparison, compare it to the $1,000 Sennheiser, monitors headphones. There's just no comparison. I mean, you pay $1,000 for these headphones because you want some really precision sound. Mm-hmm. Really, I think the big debate, not going to go take too much time on this, but is the fact that having spatial audio and having the noise canceling and software updates that can go to this headphone, I think are the game changers for these headphones. But I still don't think people are going to justify the price. You can get a pair of Bose headphones for $200 less than that, and it basically does the same thing.
Did they sell out fast?
Yeah, I don't think they had a lot of stock, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think they probably didn't make too many of them, but yeah, it's expensive. I was only able to buy 3, so no, I didn't buy any.
Yeah,
I don't have a use for it.
Nah, these AirPods Pro are fine for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to these. Like when I heard I have Sony MX3, whatever, like the
and they're fine.
3rd generation. They're great headphones. And I was really looking forward to seeing what Apple was going to do in that space, but they're so expensive compared to my Sonys. Like when I want to switch between devices, which is the primary reason I would get a Pro Max, I can just hold on the Bluetooth button on my Sonys and just repair instantly. And it doesn't really take that much time. So like the convenience side of it's not worth it. I don't need a digital crown on my headphones. That's a nice touch, but like I don't need it. So it's hard to justify. It's really hard to. I want one, but I shouldn't. It's just too hard to justify.
He'll have it as soon as he gets his tax return. He'll be like, "Here, Apple."
Yeah, there you go. And then Fitness Plus was finally released. That was the last of the Premier bundle that was included. Yeah. And they're giving, I believe, that was a month free trial. You can try it out. I'm pretty impressed. I mean, I need to get off my butt and do some exercising, and that's something that could help motivating you get moving. The videos are really, really high quality. I think the content is great. It looks like they've hired a lot of great trainers to do a lot of this workouts, and it goes from beginners all the way up to your advanced and the high end stuff. And we talked about it. So I think it's a service that I think is really you got some of these fitness companies like Peloton and others that are kind of shaking. They're a little worried that this is going to really tap into their market. So
with Peloton, you've got to buy a $3,000 bike, and then you've got to pay. I don't know how much it is. I remember seeing one time it was really expensive per month. Whereas, Apple Fitness Plus, I love the way it uses your watch. And, that's the equivalent to the Peloton bike really is your watch and how that connects to it. It's really, really well done. I was surprised.
Yeah, no, it's got a great interface. I think that they were very smart with it. So that kind of wrapped up the whole year. I think, like I said, we spent very little time on that, but it seemed like it was a long year. That obviously with pandemic, we were all dealing with it, having to stay home and all that. But I think it was some exciting times for Apple, and Apple obviously the stocks market is doing well, and we're having some good things with that. So I think Apple did well in 2020.
Yeah.
So let's go briefly. We could talk a little bit about what our thoughts are, what we expect in 2021. Holden, I know you had something you were excited to talk about. Where do you think Apple's going to go with specifically any iPhones, iPads, and we could talk a little Macs too. Where Apple's going to go in 2021?
Yeah, I think my kind of big prediction ranks for 2021 is the M1 chip and kind of how that gets handled. For one, I feel like, to go to the iPad for a second, I feel like there's less of there's not a lot distinguishing the iPad Pro and the iPad Air right now. They're very, very similar devices. But I feel like if you put an M series chip in an iPad Pro, that could be very, very compelling for people who want a more professional device, get a lot more power out of it. Why not? It's the same architecture as an A chip for the most part. Obviously there's differences, but it's close enough. The apps will run on it. We know that already. So I think it's totally possible, and it could do a lot for the iPad in terms of being seen as a professional device. But I'm really curious is where Apple goes with the M chips on the Pro machines, like Mac Pro and and the iMac, where right now we're seeing RAM attached to the M chips themselves, which is why they're maxed out at 16 gigabytes of RAM. Is that going to work in a Mac Pro? I don't think that's going to work in a Mac Pro. They would need to have RAM separate from that. So I'm very curious kind of how that evolves and what that looks like. Or if they just have the RAM built in still, but you can get, a M1 Pro Max version of it that's even more powerful and has more RAM in it or something like that. I mean, kind of just like how you can get an i5 versus an i9 versus an i7, like if they're going to have that kind of distinguishing factors between chips. I'm just really curious to see what we see there, but I'm pretty certain we'll see iPads with the M chips in them. Maybe not the super advanced ones that are Pro machine, but
I bet maybe like an M1X or something that's kind of a derivative of, because we know now that the M1 is going to be it's going to be quote unquote the low end, because Apple's going to come out with MacBook Pro 16-inch MacBook Pros, probably going to be an M2 or an M2X or whatever they decide to call it. And I'll probably end up doing that when I trade in I have the MacBook Pro the 2019 with the Core i9 processor, which has which for an Intel is a pretty beefy machine, so it's pretty fast. So, but as we talked earlier, comparing it to the M1, you definitely see a difference. So, but I agree with you on the iPad. I think the iPad's going to have a bit of a change next year, and I'm pretty confident that's going to happen. Excuse me. The fact that the iPad's going to have, I believe, I agree with you on that one, having an M chip in it, because the Air is going to be a good sweet spot for the mid range. And then we didn't even talk about is the iPad, the baseline iPad, the $349 model, which actually is a very good iPad for the price point.
Yeah,
I mean, it's got a lot of power to it for its price, and it has Apple Pencil support, which it never did before on the low end. So, so I think the iPad is going to kind of evolve next year. I agree with you with that, with that, and the Macs, of course, and who knows? I mean, the AirTags, maybe those will finally come out.
Yeah,
yeah. So, what was your thoughts for 2021, Brian?
Getting back to what Holden was saying about the M1 chips, and you look at on iOS and iOS devices, no one ever talks about, or Apple specifically doesn't talk about things like RAM or speed or anything like that. It's always just, it's got the A whatever chip, and this is the total package, and all of that stuff is just kind of insignificant. I wonder if low-end Macs will kind of fall into that category when people won't even, it won't make a difference how much RAM they have, where they're not really going to specify. I think right now they're doing it because people have that expectation that these machines, you want to know how much RAM it has. But eventually, the RAM is part of the system on the chip. And, at what point does that just become part of the entire package and not something that's singled out? I mean, with something like the Mac Pro, they could have memory cards. I mean, it could support external memory, because, the Mac Pro is modular, but something like a PowerBook. Oh my gosh, I'm showing my age. Something like the MacBook
I had a
Pro.
PowerBook.
Yeah, I've had many over the years.
Yeah, a lot.
I just have to wonder. I don't think that would fly on a Pro series machine. So I don't know how they're going to handle it, but it almost seems insignificant to mention the RAM with the M1 chip.
Yeah, if you're buying a MacBook Air, it's like, oh, I need to make sure I have 32 gigabytes of RAM on my MacBook Air. No one's having that conversation.
I mean, I have the base model, the the 999 model, and it has 8 gig of RAM, which normally I would never buy a computer right now with 8 gig of RAM, but I heard that it didn't really, seem to be, a hit to the performance. So I went for it, and to be honest, I can't imagine this being any faster than it already is.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine. So
I tell you, the technology is going to be interesting. We'll be here to cover it all next year. And you got the Consumer Electronics Show, CES, is going to be coming out in a couple weeks. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of announcements happen with technology in general. So it'll be another exciting year. Let's hope we can get this pandemic behind us, and we can have at least people can get out and do things. And but I think Apple will still be there for us and providing us all the great technology. So
I do also, Dave, want to touch on something Holden said earlier about M chips in iPad Pros.
Yeah.
since if they put, since the chips are pretty much the same, and we know you can run iOS apps on a Mac, could you essentially run a Mac app on an iPad Pro? Or could you run Mac OS? Are people going to be able to install or find a way to get Mac OS onto an iPad Pro?
It would be the first time Apple said one thing, oh, you can't do that. And then, or we're not going to do a hybrid. We're not going to combine them. And then they turn around and do exactly that. So.
I don't know that they'll do it, but I think it's probably possible to run Mac apps or maybe even the Mac OS on an iPad Pro, and someone will find a way to do it because they always do.
At the very least, we'll see Logic Pro and Final Cut Pro come to iPad in some sort of touch-friendly interface. I mean, Adobe's making a push for their Pro apps to be completely feature complete across iOS and, or I should say iPad OS and Mac OS.
Right.
Why not? Why not do it? They just released the Magic Keyboard. It's basically a laptop now when you combine it all together.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's true.
All right, let's go ahead and move on. We got a couple more topics I want to hit on before we wrap things up here. And iOS 14.4 beta is out. And interesting, I went and looked on the site, and it doesn't say that there's a beta number to it. It just says it's iOS 14.4 beta. So it was released. Yeah, it doesn't. Usually it says beta 1, beta 2. Is this beta 2? I don't know. And it's got. It was released on the 16th of December, so it's been out for about 2 weeks now. We had noted in here that has the ad tracking notification. Is that being enforced in 14.4?
That's what I heard. I haven't run the beta, so I don't know. But they, right toward the end of the initial beta cycle with 14, it was active. And you could actually, like if Facebook came up and said, do you want us to track you? And then Apple turned it off. So it sounds to me like 14.4 is going to be the one where developers won't have the option of having that prompt. It'll be enforced. So that should be interesting.
That was the whole hoo-ha with Facebook and them complaining about them not having the control of it. So, did I thought you did run beta on your iPhone at least?
I did during over the summer until it was released, and then I just kind of caught up. And I'm just I don't keep the betas going during the year.
You take the incrementals off and just wait till the big release. So iOS 15 is your next baby.
Yeah, that's my next. Yeah. But 14 was pretty solid through the beta period.
Yeah, it was. You turned me on to switching a little earlier than I normally do. So if you don't know, Holden, I have a 10R that I use as beta for beta testing. So I put that on there. But I wouldn't dare put it on my production device. So I assume you're the same way. You don't dabble in beta.
Oh no. So when betas come out, I do like my dad does do just the summer. And then after that, I get down to the normal release again. But I was on iOS 14 the second I could do it.
Okay.
And on my personal device too. I just dangerous with middle name. What can I say? I got to do it. I got to have that iOS update.
That's right. So interesting thing. We have a weekly topic of talking about iOS beta. Our co-host Warren is on the cutting edge. So I have to tell you guys, because you don't know this, that it has betas on everything, including Mac. So he's on Big Sur 11.2 already on all his Macs, and he's on 14.4 on all of his iOS devices. So he likes living on the edge. So, but that's why we like beta more, and he gives that good perspective. We can hear what his troubles are with his devices sometimes, but other times they seem to run okay too. So
I think they've gotten better over the years, definitely.
Yes,
that's
I think it has.
Conversation.
Big Sur was kind of a mess at first.
It was.
At least I thought so. Yeah.
At very first, I mean 11.0.1 and then 11.1 and then
I think it's still a little bit of a mess.
Some people got their M1s and they bricked them, and
I don't know about that. That's bad.
Yeah, happened to Warren. So that's because I think it happened the same time when I bought this 2019 model when the Catalina was just coming out, and I think they had just cut it over with the versions, and I ended up bricking it, and they had to they had to swap it. So, so anyway, let's go on. MagSafe accessories. So we've been talking a lot about the MagSafe accessories, and Brian, you have the little wallet that you have there, and I've also got the MagSafe adapter. I ended up getting another one of the MagSafe cases, but it's the clear case, and I have now opted again to return it. I had originally got it and then returned it, and then I ended up getting it for Christmas again as I forgot it was on my list. I said, yeah, honey, let me return this. So I'd rather let's save the money. You got me. We got the Mac Mini, so no need for me to have that case. So I got one of the the inexpensive cases that's working perfectly fine for me. So, but MagSafe, you've been happy with that the wallet, you said, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of bad press about it, I think, at first. But I don't have the problems that people see. If you watch YouTube videos, people reviewing them, they make it sound like it just falls off randomly, or if you slide it into your pocket, it'll fall off. I haven't found that to be the case at all with mine. I've had it for about a month now, and it holds pretty good, but it's also easy to take off if I need to take it off. So I don't know. I think it's a really great product. I went from having an 11 Pro with the folio case to keep like my credit card, my license in. I got really used to that. So when I traded in for the Mini, it was kind of a no-brainer to get the wallet, and I like it a lot.
Oh. And you have the solid iPhone, and you like the iPhone 12 Mini, and
I love it.
And I think it's selling pretty well, considering. I mean, I don't think it has such a much of a problem than these phones in the past. But I'm glad that Apple's got 4 different models. And then you get a nice choice of what you want when it comes to that. But sounds like you're happy with it, though.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a small phone to me. And I was going from an 11 Pro. And before that, I mean, I had like a 8 Plus or something, so I wasn't sure if I could get used to having a smaller phone. I won't say a small phone because it really doesn't feel small. The screen is actually a really good size. But I had no trouble transitioning at all from the 11 Pro to the Mini. I really kind of dismissed the Mini and didn't even think it was an option for me at first, but I saw it at Best Buy one day. I was in there for something else, and I'm like, wow, this actually is not as small as I thought it was going to be. And so I just kind of took the plunge, and I'm happy with it. I really like the size.
And
sweet spot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The people that I've talked to like it. Are very happy with it. So, and then app clips. You put this on as a topic. We talked about this a little bit in past episodes. I have not have used really much of anything with an app clip as of yet. I mean, there are the QR codes that are out there that you're going to scan, be able to get app clips available. In fact, now I think about it, I did a demonstration during my Apple user group on it where it was a good example using Panera Bread, and you go into the Apple Maps program and you look up for the Panera Bread, and then you can tap right in the Apple Maps program. You can order right here, right from Apple Maps, and then get to it, and then that brings you into the app clip because it doesn't have to open. You don't have to have the app in order to be able to place the order. So that's one example. But I know a lot of the examples where I remember during WWDC they were showing it where like let's say like a parking app that you want to go up to a spot that's got the QR code. You can scan it and then open up the app for the particular parking program, and then you can just have that instead. So, but I think it's still pretty fresh, and especially now with the pandemic going on right now, not too many people are out doing those kind of scans. So
no, but I tell you, it does come in handy because the gas stations around here have started putting the QR codes on the pumps. And so I decided to do it because, if I can pay for something, with Apple Pay, I'm going to do it instead of actually using my card and touching the machine and all that other stuff. And so I went through the whole app clip experience, and I just, it was pretty seamless. It worked pretty well, but I haven't seen them anywhere else. It was really the gas stations around here are the only places I've seen app clips.
I totally forgot about the feature completely until it was in the show note here.
So you got to try it out. Go. I said the app clips in Maps are pretty slick, and I was going to be another topic for another day here for Apple Maps. How that was another thing we forgot to mention that for 2020, how much improvement Apple Maps has really gained.
Mm-hmm.
But that itself with Apple Clips, I think there's a lot of different places that you can go to on the map and say, whether it's, I don't know if McDonald's does it or any other fast food places, probably Chipotle and some of the others that you can just.
I didn't know you could do that. So Dave, if you go to a restaurant on the maps, like say Panera, like there's a Panera down the street here. And if I went there on my phone,
through Maps, you just search for Panera Bread. It'll pick the most, it'll pick the,
order food.
Yeah. And it gives the link there, order food. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm checking this out
right
now.
Because I hate downloading apps for a single use.
Yeah, if you
I love the idea.
Order from there for all time. Yeah, I'm not sure if Chipotle or any others. I haven't tried that one.
I don't see it for Chipotle. They have opened up the app. I don't see anything there. You said Panera it works though.
Yes.
Yeah,
Chipotle does not have it.
Yeah, they have it. They have a Yelp link. But
order food.
Panera Bread incorporated into Apple Maps. And that's a good example of an app clip.
Boston Market has it.
Wow.
Oh yeah, Boston Market is another one. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right. So let's go on. We got a couple tips here I want to talk about real quick. I actually got some links here from a couple articles relating to this. How do you erase and prepare an Apple Watch for gifting, recycling, or selling? Now, probably one of the most important things you got to do is if you're ever going to sell your Apple Watch, you want to go into the app, the Apple Watch app on your iPhone, and go in and unpair the watch, make sure it's erased, and just like you would do with an iPhone. And it's pretty straightforward how you do it. But the first thing you got to do is unpair it first, because if you leave it paired and you go to sell it to somebody, they're going to be out of luck because it's going to be paired forever. So very important that you go in and unpair it and make sure that that's unpaired, as well as do a full erase and reset it. I mean, that's what I do when I traded in my 11 Pro Max. I made sure the first thing I did was I did a full out reset, and it goes right to the hello screen and let them deal with it because it's not my phone anymore. Same thing with the Apple Watch. Just be sure you do that. We got a link in the show notes on how to run through this on Apple Insider on that tip. So take a look at that. And then other one I wanted to bring up real quick was I just found this out, and this actually was in Macworld. And anybody who uses the Apple Cash Card, that you use that to pay bills. In fact, Brian, you just paid me the other day for something. So for the mic that you're sounding very good on. So you are now able to go into the Apple Cash Card in Wallet and be able to get a full statement of all the transactions that have ever been done on the Apple Cash Card. So basically all you got to do is you go up into the three dots up at the top right when you go to the card, and then you swipe down to nearly towards the bottom, and then there's a link there that says request transaction statement. And then what that does is Apple will email you a PDF that contains the last 24 months of your transactions that are associated with that Apple Cash account, and gives summaries for each month. So if anybody does a lot of heavy usage of the Apple Card, that could come in handy. Cash card, excuse me.
Yeah, the Cash Card. We do. And this is something, it didn't get a lot of press, but I have two young kids, and they now can, because before they couldn't have Apple Cash Cards, there was like an age limit on it. Right. And with family sharing, they allowed you now to get Apple Cash Cards for the children. And it works out great because I can I can send money to them through iMessage. It goes on their Apple Card, say their allowance, or, sometimes, for their birthday, someone gives them a check, and I cash the check and put it in my account. And then I just Apple Pay them the money. Or even like, say, Holden wants to send money to his brothers, for their birthday or whatever, he can just Apple Pay it to him.
Yep. Oh yeah, I love it. So did you know about this, Holden? This is something new. I just learned it the other day too.
Yeah, I knew about all that stuff because Dad's anything family sharing related, Dad will tell me about.
You're not part of our family share,
Dad
though.
Let me know.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of sharing.
I'm not a part of that family though. I'm not in that family share.
He's too old.
Yeah, you're old guy. You don't get those gifts anymore. All right, let's move on to some apps. We had some app picks here, and I think two of these apps were yours, Brian. If you want to go ahead and talk about your first app that you had there.
The first one was Solar Watch, and it really doesn't do a whole lot, except it's just a really nice looking app, and it's got a really great widget. And it does the weather and everything. It's just a really nice looking app. And I noticed the other day that there's an Apple TV version, because I never go down to the bottom of my Apple TV, in the list of apps. And it's probably been there for a while, but it's the first time I've noticed it. But it's got the watch app, it's got the iPad app, it's got the phone app. So if you're into weather apps and stuff like that, it's definitely worth a look. And the other one was NetNewsWire, which has been around for a really long time.
Forever.
The Mac version has been. I mean, I remember using that in the early 2000s even. But the iOS version has always kind of been a little sketchy until maybe the last year or so. It works great. It's really a solid app.
Yeah, no, I've got that installed on my iPhone, as well as my favorite is a News Explorer, and then because I use that via the Set app. I have Set app, and that's part of one of many of the apps they have on that too. So, All right, and then one app I came across here, and actually I found out about this morning when I was attending a meeting here that someone did on security, is a VPN service called Surfshark, and they have a great service that's very similar to a lot of those VPNs that are out there. And they have one of the things that stands out with Surfshark versus like ExpressVPN, probably one of the other big VPNs that are out there. How many devices you can have on ExpressVPN? You can only have 5. Well, on Surfshark, you can have unlimited. And then you have 15 libraries that you have access to through Netflix, so across the world. So, of course, some people want to get on Netflix and want to be able to watch a BBC show or something like that. In fact, you can watch Star Trek Discovery on Netflix if you go put your VPN to UK. And then you also have ad blocker capabilities, and the price is just insane. You can get if you get it now, it's you can sign up. It's like $69. It'll give you 27 months of service for that $2.21 a month. For that. And then they have an iOS app, and which I have the link in the show notes for, so you can use that on that, as well as you can use it. I've used it on, they've got ways of being able to use it on Apple TV and others. So if you want to be able to put VPN on a streaming device, you can do that. I actually installed it on, I just got a TiVo Stream, which is an Android Google based device, but it's a pretty cool alternate, a lot more reasonable than an Apple TV. It's like $39. So, but you can install through the Google Play Store. You can install a VPN. So these guys have it too. So I had ExpressVPN, but I was sold on these guys. So once my ExpressVPN subscription runs out, I'm gonna keep going with these guys. So it's another great app there for iOS. So
yeah, follow up with that, because I'd like to know how that works for you.
Oh, with using an Apple TV, or
just using it in general.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I tried it. I just installed it on the M1 Mac. Worked great.
Oh, okay.
So I tried that already, and I just installed it on the iOS device. So, but check it out. Yeah, Surfshark. So, Surfshark. All right, guys. I think that we have brought this show to a close. There was a lot of stuff we talked about here. So let me go ahead and wrap things up here. Okay. Sure. That is a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Twitter @intouchwithios, or you can subscribe in your favorite podcatcher, including Apple Podcasts and many others, or better yet, go to our website at intouchwithios.com, where all the links to all the ways to listen to us are there. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Twitter @DaveG65. And Holden, thank you so much for being here. This was a blast. And why don't you tell everybody about your podcasts?
Thank you again for having me. I do 2 podcasts. One is called Respawning Fire. It's a kind of video game oriented podcast. Me and my friend Chad talk about what games we've been playing, gaming news, and all that fun stuff. I do another podcast now with my friend Michael called Networked, which is, Apple stuff. So, if you want to continue these conversations, Networked is going to be the place for that as well. And yeah, that's the podcast I do.
Any social media that people can find you at?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm at Holden DePardo. I don't tweet that often. I don't know. Sometimes I do. I'm at Holden DePardo on Twitter.
All right. Sounds good. And Brian, just let everybody know about you.
Geez, I'm not on any podcasts, and I don't really have social media. So
yeah.
So yeah, I'm not as out there as Holden is, and you are. So I'll just be a guest on your show once in a while, Dave.
Absolutely. Well, we really appreciate you being here. If you have any feedback, just make sure you send feedback here to feedback@intouchwithios.com. If you have any feedback or questions to Brian, and I'll pass it on to him. Well, thanks both of you guys for being here. This was such a blast. Really appreciate you being here. Wish everybody a happy and healthy new year for 2021. I can't believe it. The year has gone past, and we're going to be starting a new year and all kinds of new things to talk about in 2021. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon. All right, guys. Got it right under an hour, too.
Wow.
Ooh. That is so seamless for the YouTube integration. That's fantastic.
Is that like a plugin for it, or is it?
You have to enable it in your Zoom